My presentation is on group policy. This was my final project for Networking 161, Networking with Windows Operating Systems. My name is Frankie Trigg. Every computer system needs an operating system, or an OS, in order to complete tasks. The OS we focus on in this presentation is the Windows Server Operating System. The OS gives a network administrator a console in order to set group policy and adjust these settings as seen fit for the network. Throughout this presentation, you can expect to learn about terms like object, GPO, and GPMC, as well as many others. All of this will help give you insight into what a network administrator's tasks are in Windows Server and what an essential role they play in a networked environment. What is Microsoft Group Policy? For a network administrator, group policy can be a very powerful tool, especially when controlled at a central management console. Group policy is used to create the rules in an enterprise environment. This is where an administrator can set password requirements, restrict access to or give permissions to certain files. Group policy can also be used to restrict access to certain programs and settings within Windows as well. This is a powerful tool because it can restrict users to use the computer in a way that's only productive for the enterprise. A group policy object is used to control settings of user accounts, activity, and the machines they work on. These policies can be used to adjust settings of the local machine or user. You can make policies that affect an entire site or domain, or can affect an organizational unit, such as the sales department. The most relevant example I can give is the password policy. This policy lets an administrator make many adjustments to the password requirements for a user in the network. Group Policy Management Console, or GPMC. The Group Policy Management Console is an interface that allows a network administrator to manage or create GPOs and link them to the appropriate site, domain, or OU. This interface has a layout that gives the administrator a view of all GPOs, OUs, domains, and sites that exist in the enterprise. The GPMC also gives the administrator a way to import, export, copy, paste, backup, and restore GPOs, allowing for a quick and easy way to implement and manage GPOs. Group policy links and inheritance. Every domain is configured with a default domain policy, and that is linked with the domain, so any OU that falls under that domain will inherit the policies of the domain. For example, if a GPO set in place was to make all desktop backgrounds green, then every user who is in an OU that's under that domain would have green backgrounds. You can also assign a GPO to a specific OU. Say, sales is in an OU, and you want to block sales users from being able to use USB devices. You can configure a disable USB specific to the sales OU. As you can see, the ability to have access to these features can make configuring group policies easier. If there are settings an administrator would want to be applied to all users and machines, they could place those policies linked to the domain. Then they could apply policies specific to the OU and link the policy to the OU. There can be instances where conflicting settings can be assigned across different GPOs assigned to different OUs. In cases like this, the lowest precedence setting will be enforced. For example, in the domain, we set all user backgrounds to be set to green. But in the sales OU, we set the background to yellow. Then the sales OU desktop background will now be yellow. Here you can see how the policy works from the top down. The domain is on top and the sales is below. So the sales policy is put into effect. This would not be the case if the GPO linked to the domain is set to enforce. 5 group policies that I would put in place. The first group policy I would put in place is changing the name of the administrator account. Also, I would shut down the guest accounts to prevent unauthorized access to the network. The second policy I think is important to restrict access to the control panel. A user can make some serious changes to the system control panel, and it's best to just restrict access to prevent anything important from being adjusted. An important policy to put in place for security of the system, to prevent malware, and to prevent data from being stolen is to disable USBs from being able to be used. To do this, you configure a disable USB group policy. After Windows downloads important software updates, it usually needs to restart the system. This restart is best to happen outside of working hours to not disrupt a user's work. It's best to disable the forced restart that Windows has configured automatically to prevent the restart from happening. Another good policy to implement is to prevent changes to proxy settings whether the company uses a proxy server or not. It can be maliciously adjusted to divert internet traffic to a middleman. In conclusion, group policy objects define the rules and settings set to users and machines. GPOs can be used to restrict user access, their activity on the network, and the computer settings. Policies can be set to the domain, site, or organizational unit. Group policy has inheritance, so the policy that is linked higher in the hierarchy will also apply to all the users and machines underneath in the hierarchy of the Active Directory.